everyone. My name's Yvonne Max, and I'm the founder and chair of the channel community and the founder and CEO of Co-Chair, a coaching and consulting practice, and also a channel community gold sponsor. Welcome to the very next episode of Smashing the Class Ceiling. And in this series, I will be interviewing and showcasing some of the fantastic individuals that we have in the channel who've all come from a low social economic background, but have gone on to do incredibly successful careers. They will be sharing their stories of how they've navigated the corporate corridors and smashed through that class ceiling. So, without delay, I would like to welcome my very next guest, Nicola Tiffin. Now, Nicola is the Senior Manager of Environmental, Social and Governance, or as some of us know it as ESG. And thank you very much, Nicola, for coming on the show and sharing your story with us. You're welcome. So Nicola, look, we've known each other not that long, but in that very short time that we've known each other, I managed to get a very small insight into your background, which is why I wanted to have you on the show. But most people, and I don't know most of it, so most people won't know any idea of where you've come from. So let's start with that. Nicola, tell me about where you grew up and talk to me about your early career.
So I grew up in the northeast of England in a little seaside town called South Shields. I didn't start out in technology. I didn't. I just worked and worked and worked and worked. So I left school at 16. I didn't go to college or university, and that wasn't available to me. I grew up on a council estate. I didn't have a lot of money, and I just worked and I would do anything. I did a variety of jobs throughout the years, and I started putting letters in envelopes at an insurance company. Someone spotted me there and said, "Oh, you should work on the phone. You've got a great voice in talking to people." So I then moved into customer service for insurance and worked my way up in that way. That found me moving all down through the country. So I went from Newcastle all the way down to London. And then I was a branch manager for an insurance company down there. And again, it's interesting actually. I've always found myself in male-dominated industry.
Yeah.
It's very, very male-dominated.
Yeah.
My dad always worked in technology, so he's technical services director. And I used to spend my Saturday, sorry, my mum and dad split up when I was 2, and so on a Friday I used to go to my dad's and spend all day Saturday with him, and if he had to work I used to go into the office with him, and all the guys would be there, building service and stuff, and I'd make them all tea and and then so yeah, I moved to London, and then when I left London I went back to Newcastle for a little bit. I've got sisters who are 20 and 22 years younger than me. So I've got four siblings, and they didn't really know me. Moved back there, and then I thought, what do I want to do next? And I went no, and that's when I started working in IT. Yeah, from a I don't know, in growing up, we had, my stepdad was in the shipyards, my granddad was in the shipyards, my uncle, that's what it was like up there. There wasn't a lot of, it wasn't big city life. And whilst my dad went off and went to poly and worked in IT, that wasn't really what it was like.
Yeah. So stuffing envelopes. Do you think that's the worst job you've ever done? Or have you done worse than that?
Definitely done worse than that. I used to, and actually, I don't say worse because they're all, it's a job, and actually it's the people that make it fun.
Yeah.
We've cleaned caravans at Haggerston Castle. So when people have to go and go on holiday,
Yeah.
would go in on a Friday and then or a Thursday, whatever, and you'd go and clean caravans. So you'd find all kinds, but you had to be really, really quick. I've done lots and lots of voluntary work as well. So
Right.
I've done all kinds. I've worked in the music industry. I've worked behind bars. I am definitely a workaholic.
Yeah, no, honestly, our so I've done various jobs throughout I think my worst job was definitely weed picking at the local gardening, like the nursery. It wasn't a garden centre, it was like a nursery where they grew stuff. Um, but your stuffing of envelopes reminded me of one of a job I did while I was temping after coming back from being a holiday rep. It was sending faxes, like literally, and I had like three fax machines, but I made it a little game. I was like, right, if I'm gonna have to send the faxes, I'm gonna make it a game. And I like, how can I get this little system going so I can send as many faxes as I could? I mean, it's just the things that you do. But it's someone once said to me, if you're gonna, whatever job you do, no matter how awful, just do it to your best of your ability and put bells on. Yeah, I think it was that, and filing was probably one of the quite like turning up to my first job and then go, we got to do a load of filing. I'm like, filing? Really? And but then I was like, right, okay, well, if I've got to do, come from senior school thinking you're all big and clever, and then you go to your first office job and then you have to make the teas and do the filing. And I was like, not really, but um I made sure that that filing system was the best filing system they've ever had. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I would, tempt, or I just do anything. So, anything at all to get money. I remember, and I mean, it was a merchant for like a timber merchant, but you could smoke, and
right,
somebody in the office behind me was smoking. And I remember, these, old men smoking and bellowing out. And again, I was there taking on reception and take deliveries, and then you'd have contractors coming in. And yeah, again, I think throughout everything that I've done, I wouldn't say anything was a worse job or
yeah,
terrible, because I've just made them. And it's the people that you meet.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's and those experiences are what build you and grow you, don't they? And I think people don't appreciate that unless they've experienced it. But yeah, and you also get exposed to all different manner of situations and individuals. And I've always enjoyed working with men for the same, like they're very much more straightforward than some of the women I've worked with, that's for sure. um, so how did you get in the channel? How did you get in the IT channel?
Um, when I moved back from London, so I'd always worked in insurance, and well, not always, but when I worked, I came back home and I wanted to spend time with my younger sisters, because my siblings on my mum's side, so my sister and my brother, they knew me. I grew up with them, and then the little ones didn't. So when I left London, I said I did four jobs in London, and I cleared off all of my debt because I wanted to spend time with them. So I took some time, and just the little things like picking up from school, and just general everyday stuff.
Yeah,
And then my dad's when my dad worked at the time, so he was director. They needed somebody as a buyer, to step in, because someone was off sick or maternity or something, for a couple of weeks. And so I did that, help them out. And then I was like, okay, where do I move to next? I knew I didn't want to go to London. I knew I didn't want to, it was too impersonal. I knew I was off. And my friend had said, come to Sheffield, and, you can live with me. And then I was like, okay, where shall I work? And again, the same thing, just went out, I had an agency, and looked at things far and wide. And the the agency that I worked with, she put me forward for Insight, and my dad was like, "Oh my goodness, Insight! it was renowned for really, really difficult to get into. And if you can get in there, then that's it. They're well renowned in the industry. And so I went for an account manager's job, and the person who interviewed me is no longer with the business. We had to make up a something to sell. And so I was lying in bed thinking, okay, what can we make up to sell? And I love sales, even though I'm not in sales anymore. I absolutely love sales. And so I'd made up the concept of a roll-up ski. And I don't know why, because I've never skied. But I made this concept of a roll-up ski. And then when you clicked a button, like hand warmers, you clicked a button and it would go rigid and hard. And then to bring it back from holiday, you would submerge it in hot water and roll it up, and then you could put it in your case.
Great
And
idea.
no, so then
I want one.
literally sat like, so there was a whole panel of people, and it was a selection where loads of people are being are being interviewed on the same day. And he said, I want to buy this, where can I buy it? And I was like, well, I just made it up. He was like, no. So it was really funny. And then he'd said, oh, you're just going to want to be a manager. You've been a manager before, you worked your way up. And I said, no, genuinely, I don't know anything about IT. I'm quite good with tech, but I don't know anything about IT. I don't want to manage people with IT. I don't know anything about it. So yeah, I started as an account manager. And then within 9 months, so the training is very different now to what it was then, because that was 18 years ago. And within like 6-7 months, I was approached and said, please, can you go and apply for this manager's job? And I was having a lovely time, selling and chatting to customers. And yeah, so I went for a manager's job and then became a manager. Did that for 3 years. And then I thought, I need to do something else. There's something else. And so then I worked on the win team, which was supporting, working with vendors.
Yeah.
Sales teammates. So winning opportunities that we would have otherwise lost. Working with our partners. And then registering opportunities. And then I really wanted to get into project management. I loved events, I loved projects. And then, yeah, I went off and did project management.
Fantastic.
And that's when I started. That is when I started my qualifications. So at that point, so I was like 32 or something. So between leaving school at 16 and 32, I didn't do any sort of educational learning formally, other than on the job type.
Yeah. But then you found your real passion and followed it.
Oh.
No, that's fantastic. I think the first formal qualification, I did my BTEC National on day release as part of my apprenticeship, which was like still an academic, it's like A levels, I suppose. And then the next time was my CSE when I became a Cisco specialist. So the similar sort of I think when you find something that you enjoy and you love, that part of it doesn't seem to be so challenging, but because you're doing it because you want to do it. And this is something, I see it now with lots of people. If you're doing it because you want to do it, you'll achieve it. If you're doing it because you could or should, you more likely won't.
And I think that's a really good point, actually, because I had to rewrite a lot of the stories that I told myself, because that I wasn't good at it, that I was terrible at learning, that I wasn't academic. Anyway, I'm not academic, but that I couldn't do it. So because I don't know whether it was through people telling me or whether it was being told, but that that wasn't, qualifications weren't for me. That wasn't the right path. You shouldn't do this. That's not for you. And so there was a lot, I had to rewrite a lot of what I thought I knew. So I did an apprenticeship. I came back from maternity leave, and the government launched the apprenticeship levy, and there was the project management qualification. And so it was time to really, really
Well,
well when I just came back from maternity leave. So yeah, I thought, oh, let's do that. So I did that, and that's when I moved into the project management role, and did the qualification at the same time. And then I did all of them. I collected them all. So I've got every project management qualification that you can possibly have. Actually, I don't. That's a lie. I don't have Prince 2. And the PMP I did in COVID,
wow.
where which was horrendous, 4 hour multiple choice exam with the examiner on the screen watching your every move, to make sure that you're not cheating, and you had to video the whole room, and yeah, it was really, really, really intense. But a lot of that was, I didn't think that because of my experience in school, because of my experience, then I would.
Well, it's because of our conditioning and, the school system, it's still unfortunately designed for the Industrial Revolution and it hasn't evolved or changed. And it's still created to get results based on academic. It's not designed for people that are more creative or solutions focused. Or anyway, that's a completely different story, and I don't want us to go too far off track because you and I will be here all day otherwise. And um, so what have been the biggest challenges that you've faced and how did you overcome them?
Um, the
I mean,
biggest,
that's one that you've just mentioned. I mean, that's quite a significant one, but what's.
yeah, I think it's interesting because I never thought of being a woman was a detriment. So I never experienced that because I just did it anyway. So
Yeah,
I'd never experienced that until someone who was a leader at the time, they asked me to change. So I had my, I've got dyed hair. I always had dyed hair, and they said you've got to dye your hair a normal color. And I've got to, fit into this box. I've got to do this thing. I've got to conform in a way. And that really, I hadn't realized at the time how much that had broken who I was.
yeah,
And coming out of that was really, really, really hard. That's within Insight. They are no longer with the business. But yeah, that's probably the biggest significant change, where conforming to someone's ideal of what normal is, and you have to fit into this box and not celebrated for your individuality, and thinking differently. It's not like that anymore. That's
yeah,
it's definitely obviously, here I am with bright red hair.
yeah, yeah,
It's definitely not like that anymore, but there was certainly individual, an individual or individuals at the time who you were less than if you were a woman, you were less than if, you didn't look like everybody else or behave like everybody else, or not behave in a bad way, but, you
yeah.
were.
You didn't play the corporate game and the politics and and dress in the uniform because it is a uniform, and and you see that a lot. I think it's becoming embraced more so now, but I've experienced it, I've witnessed it, and I've never ever felt that being a woman has ever held me back like you, but I do now, knowing what I know. And one of the reasons why we're doing this podcast was I do think that coming from a working class background and not knowing the rules did hold me back. Like turning up to my first job dressed in a play suit thinking I'm going clubbing because no one had ever worked in an office before and I didn't know that that's not appropriate. it's just those bits of education, and that you have to deal with all of this extra brain power that you have to consume on learning extra stuff that others just take for granted. So it's tough. I'm really pleased that obviously all of that's gone away now, because your hair is fabulous and that's part of who you are. So I'm glad that you overcome that. So what has been your proudest moment in your career and why, Nicola?
Um, proudest moment. So professionally, I think when people approach me for something. So um, when I was approached for the chief of staff role, which didn't exist, that made me feel really proud, because I got there through, the work, my work ethic, the work that I did. It wasn't about anything else other than what I've done and who I am. And it didn't matter that I don't have a degree. It didn't matter that I didn't go to college. None of that mattered, but it was through the work that I've done, but then also the people. So I really love it when I coach or mentor someone and they then, something happens, they break through their own limiting belief, or they get something that they didn't think that they could have, or it those, I'll not name them, but those moments make me feel really, really, really proud.
Yeah.
Yeah, really proud.
Yeah, it's love. It's like your children, isn't it? Seeing them achieve something. Yeah, I mean that's exactly why I went into coaching and created the channel community, because it is, you want to pay it forward and see people do well that wouldn't necessarily have the same opportunities. So, because sort of pass on your experience and knowledge. Yeah, no, I totally get it. I'm totally with you on that. And it is proud person moment. I say proud mum, not everyone's a mum, but irrespective, it's like that. You've seen someone grow and develop, and it's so rewarding. And that's, and I actually sometimes feel bad of how much I get from seeing that, because it's almost like you're, you feel a bit guilty for the feelings that you get from seeing it and seeing other people do so well. But yeah, no, lovely. And how do you think that coming from a low socioeconomic background has impacted your career, either positively or negatively, or
I think
both?
positively, there's a hunger and a drive that I think comes from well, I'm going to show you, I'm going to prove it. Tell me I can't, I'm going to do it anyway, and I'm going to do it with glitter and bells and whistles, and I'm going to show you um that drive and that fire, I
Yeah,
think, definitely. And then negatively, I think it takes longer. It's hard, it can be hard and relentless. And that can really, really, drain energy and get really frustrating.
yeah. Yeah, I think, again, something that's come up consistently across everybody I've interviewed is that work ethic, that drive, that grit, that resilience that you don't get if you've come from a more privileged, entitled upbringing, because everything's just given to you. And yeah, it does take longer, but if you put the work in the graft, I think I also went through a bit of a rethought process around how I used to get frustrated with things like the class pay gap, not the gender pay gap, but the class pay gap when I first understood it. But actually now my mindset, not shit, set has shifted slightly, and it's more about, you can't choose who you're born to or where you're born. Some people are born to privilege, some people are born with nothing. your starting point, it can't change, but where you end up can. And rather than get mad about it, just learn the skills and behaviors that you need to get yourself on that journey, because we all have the same opportunities. We just start at different points. So there's my new book, my thought process is don't get mad, get skills. There you go. It's like, but yeah, it does take a lot longer, unfortunately. But we all get there. It's it's just got to start, right? It's just your starting point doesn't always start from the same place. So
Yeah,
knowing, oh, I'm sorry, go on, Nicola.
think there's a, I'll do anything. So I get asked a lot, oh, are you worried? There's so much change in the channel, there's so much change in the industry, there's so many people that are losing their job. And I get asked a lot, are you worried? Well, I'll just do anything.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter where I am today. It's quite humbling to be, there's always someone worse off than you. My grandma, you always said it, and which is and and so, I'll I'll just do anything, regardless of what that looks like. So there's like a humbleness about it too, in that I'm not expected. There's no expectation of, now I'm here. Actually, do I need to go? And then my
yeah,
career as well, I share my career a lot, especially through our insight, because it's not been an up the ladder, because it has been, along and up and down and round, and it's not,
squiggly.
yeah, it's not traditional, because the only thing that holds you back is your limiting beliefs of I can't
Yeah,
do this, or not knowing that actually there is something available to me, because I'm creative. Actually, I can go and work in marketing, or
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, no, it's so true. It is so, so true. And it goes back to that conditioning that we spoke about, like some people are just sort of told they've got to do this, they've got to do that, and I actually feel sad for them to have all that extra pressure on them that I never had. I was never guided as to what I could do, by the way, but I was never told I couldn't do anything. But it was sort of, I was never told I couldn't compete with boys, or like I had to go down that path. It was certainly do whatever you feel like you want to do. Just be kind and be nice. That was sort of the foundation. But yeah, no, it is so, so true. So knowing now what you know and what you've achieved, what would you say to a younger version of yourself?
um be kind to yourself. Is I'm I have been incredibly hard on myself. So that would be it. Follow your heart and trust your instinct, and just be kind to yourself. Show yourself the same kindness and compassion that you show everybody else.
Ah, I love that. And what support and help do you think that companies could be doing to help individuals that come from a low social economic background?
Yeah, and we've done loads of work at Insight, and of course I feel bad because I only know of I've only worked at Insight, so I only know what we do.
Yeah,
Um, I've worked here for 18 years, and so it's really difficult to know, what else is out there, what other companies do, and I ask lots and lots and lots of questions all of the time, and it's not to belittle anybody, it's because I like to understand, and like to know. Some of the things that we've done is breaking down the like entry in. So we have our skills academy, which is phenomenal. It's based on attitude and those transferable skills that you wouldn't normally think about. Some of my best hires, when I was a manager, were one was a roofer he's still in the channel. He's in very, very, very incredibly um, incredibly doing incredibly well. One was a barman, but again, I didn't need people to understand tech, because I didn't understand tech. Um, I think making it available to people. I love going into schools. I do a guess my job, and breaking down some of those what do I look like I do? And I'll be wearing clothes like this with pink hair, trainers on, and that no one ever gets technology because they always, and I always just say, okay, my job is really hard, but you think about the industry, they
Yeah.
never use technology at all because of the belief that you have to be geeky or you have to be a certain thing.
Yeah.
Working with schools, and we've got an incredible STEM program with committee of people, and again, it's just that outreach, working with communities. We've got early years careers. There's so much that businesses can do to support, regardless of what that looks like, regardless of how big they are. They can, there's loads and loads of opportunity.
Which is fab. And and I know, knowing you so well now, is that you'll always be happy to share some of that stuff with others. So tap you up at any point should they want to explore a bit more, because caring is sharing is caring, as they say. And yeah, no, it's incredible the work that you guys do. I think that's one of the reasons why I've really enjoyed getting to work closer with you over this period. So my final question to you is, what one piece of advice would you give to someone that's come from a low social economic background who is trying to navigate themselves a career in the channel?
Connect with people. So find someone who, you can follow them in the background, check out their LinkedIn. I'm terrible at posting. I'm really bad. I'm trying to be better. But go in with an inquisitive mind, stay curious and connect with people, ask for help. I could not have got to where I am today without incredible people support me along the way. And it's always available if you just ask for it.
Yeah.
Ask all of the questions, and even if you think it makes you look stupid, ask for help because people love to give it.
Yeah.
And follow people that inspire you, and then literally contact them and ask.
I love that. Nicola, you have well and truly smashed the class ceiling. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
It's been lovely. Thank you for having me.